Hello and welcome. I am Rambo Talabong and you're watching Rappler Talk. Today we will be talking about the internet. It has once been promised to be a tool for human connection, but now it is a tool for disinformation and conflict. Speaking to us today, his first interview on the studio is HN founder Fredrick Brennan.
Hello, magandang umaga po.
Welcome to the program.
Yes, thank you for having me.
Mr. Brennan. Okay, so right now, actually up until now, HN is still in the news because it's
Yes.
been linked to U.S. mass shootings. But I wanted to go to the beginning.
Okay.
How did it start?
Yeah, well, I guess I can say in a moment of profound naivete, right? In 2013, which was already 6 years ago, almost 7,
Yeah.
you know, I had this idea for kind of 4chan and Reddit to combine them. So, like 4chan, it would be an image board and all anonymous. But like Reddit, you would be able to make your own boards. At first, I really didn't think this site would become popular. For the first year, it wasn't. I just put it online kind of as like to showcase my abilities with programming like that.
How would you describe 8chan to someone who hasn't found out about it?
It depends on what era we're talking about. If we're talking about right now in 2019,
2019?
I would say that 8chan is a cesspool. It is some of the worst, content on the internet. And despite repeated setbacks, deplatforming, walang profit, they have so many problems. But it just seems like they just keep going no matter what. So, yeah.
Okay, but in the beginning,
Right.
what did you want it to be?
In the beginning, I wanted to see what would happen if users could make their own boards. Because, as far as I know, that had never happened before. Previously, on image board sites, the administrator was in full control
Yeah.
of which topics will be discussed
Yeah.
and which topics will not be discussed.
Yes.
So, I wanted to see what would happen if users could decide what topics to discuss, basically.
And did you imagine that taboo topics would be discussed in 8chan?
Yeah, of course, in the beginning, I'm not that naive. I was quite naive, but not that naive. I
Yeah.
expected them to talk about, because they're all anonymous taboo topics.
Yes.
And I expected perhaps that they would be a bit more parang toxic than,
Yeah.
4chan users. But I never expected it to leak out into real life as often as it has.
Because I think I'm asking this question right now because 8chan is like the internet, really.
Yes,
So
yes.
what was the atmosphere back then? What was the expectation about the internet?
Back then there was like a narrative that, it's all free speech, and
Yeah.
if we're all just talking, the best ideas will win out. And, they're just joking when they're making threats or whatever. It was a different time.
Yeah.
They're just joking, they're just playing around. There was even a narrative that, they're just pretending to be racist or pretending, to be white supremacist like that. But now it's obvious that there is a cohort of users who is totally serious and not joking. Like,
What-
it's gone from people saying, oh, they're joking, to now they're not joking.
They're actually shooting people.
Right, exactly.
What changed from then to now?
I guess what I would have to say is I don't even know. I don't really know what changed between then and now. Of course, we can say the administration, right? Because I quit. And in many ways, Jim Watkins
Yeah.
was kind of operating things in a way that was different than I had done.
Yeah.
For example, he created a far-right conspiracy website called The Goldwater. And he hired so-called journalists, kind of like this operation,
Yeah, yeah.
to write articles on the Goldwater,
Yeah.
which, were ranked to be conspiracy theories like that.
Yeah.
He also wrote on the HN homepage, Embrace Infamy, diba?
Yeah.
So after all 3 shootings, he still has this Embrace Infamy on there. So, it's hard to say what really changed. But it's clear that after the shootings, they did not take the problem seriously. Users were inciting violence, celebrating the mass shooters, even writing that they wanted to do other ones. And it just seemed like they were not taking that seriously. They would just say to people, oh, we deleted the original post. Is that not enough?
Yeah.
But of course it's not enough, diba?
Okay, I'm glad you raised up the slogan "Embrace Infamy."
Right.
It's relatively new, right? But back then, to you,
Yes.
what would be the slogan of 8chan when you
You
started
know,
it?
when I first created HN, it was just, there was really no slogan. You can look back in the archive. It just said, on HN you can create your own image board with no experience. That's it. But it seems like they kind of got high on the media attention. Somebody called them the darkest reaches of the internet. So then they added that to the homepage. And
Oh,
then, I have no idea where the words embrace infamy came from.
uh-huh.
But anybody with eyes to see can see that that's extremely dangerous after a shooting to tell the users to embrace that infamy, right?
Yeah.
That's not,
But what values did you want to foster inside 8chan?
yeah, there's so much
Okay.
that the admins could do, right?
Yeah.
They could take down boards that are inciting violence.
Yes.
For example, I know that it's not easy to moderate this kind of site, but Jim Watkins does have the money to do it. He
Uh-huh.
could take down, for example, the board for a limited time. He could take down that embrace infamy.
Uh-huh.
He could stop, marketing conspiracy theories on his gold
Okay.
water. You know, but it just seems like they didn't do any of those things. And even Cloudflare, their network provider,
Shut that
who
down.
protected them at first,
Yeah.
right? Cloudflare was always saying, oh, it's just free speech, we can't do anything.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, even Cloudflare saw that, oh, they're not trying in good faith
Yeah.
to
They were
moderate.
dropped.
Yes, right. Because it's not really the content that is the problem. It's that you're not trying in good faith to remove it.
So you
You-
think it's also an admin problem?
Yes.
It comes from the admin.
No, it definitely does come from the administration because what the administration says is, what kind of, it affects the users and it affects the site and it affects people's expectations about what they can do. For example, Jim Watkins after the Christchurch
Yeah.
shooting, he said that it was the problem was criminal aliens. You can see that in a YouTube video he made as a
Uh-huh.
response to the Washington Post. So isn't that insane?
Yeah.
He's blaming immigration on the Christchurch shooting.
Yeah.
So, Watkins himself is always making up conspiracy theories. He blamed Instagram on the manifesto when that's
Yeah.
manifestly not true.
Yeah.
So of course the users follow in that. Yeah.
Okay. What would be structural changes that you would recommend to
Yeah.
8chan right now?
Well, I don't trust Watkins and Son at all to be able
You
to
want
run.
them out?
Yes, I feel like they should really just end 8chan. It was a good attempt, had a good few years, 7 years. That's a long time.
Yeah.
But given all these shootings and all of the terrible things that have happened, it's time to close it down. Other sites that are better run and have the same format, let them take over. 4chan is one of them.
Yeah.
Even Reddit, sites like that. This VOAT, VOAT. There's so many other sites
It's
that are.
ironic because you started 8chan to be better than Reddit and 4chan, and now you want the users to go there, right?
It is a little bit ironic, isn't it? But I really feel like 4chan's administration has a better handle on things than, Watkins. I mean,
You don't think it's an option to just replace the Watkins and Son?
it's like there's already such a bad stigma around 8chan. And I mean, would the new administrator take down the Embrace infamy? Would he remove the politics board when, God forbid, there's a shooting or something like that, so that there is no incitement to violence on the board? I don't know, because again, the users have been conditioned to expect it this way. So if he starts doing things like that, he might have a revolt, as you could say.
That's true.
Yeah.
Because they're already there. It's really
Yeah,
different.
and they've
It's a culture.
already, yeah, it's like, it's kind of like a garden, right? He's
Yeah.
been cultivating this garden,
Uh-huh.
and he's been, so now if we're just suddenly going to change, the kind of
The
plants
gardener,
and everything,
yeah.
that will offend everybody that's already there. So
It's really good to just shut it down. Uh-huh.
I feel like, okay, let's say Watkins and Son step down.
Yeah.
Who would replace them,
Who do you think?
There's really nobody else there, and who would replace them would probably be worse than them. It's kind of like how people are always demanding that President Trump step down, right? But who will replace him? Pence, who's much worse than him, at least for, Democrats and
Yeah,
whatever.
yeah.
So it's like you can't win, To be honest, maybe the best thing they could do, they would never do this,
Okay.
but they could just give 8chan to the 4chan owner.
What should if they don't shut it down on their own, should the governments intervene?
You know, I feel like it's a good thing that their network provider is not working with them right now.
Yeah.
And they are really going to struggle to try to bring it back online.
Yeah.
You know, Watkins is saying, oh, I want to bring it back online. You know, he said it's voluntarily down, but that's not true. His son was working and working and working to try to bring it back.
Yeah, he's been tweeting
Yeah,
about it.
he's been tweeting incessantly. Oh, I'm like Ishmael in the Pekod, you know, things like that.
Uh-huh.
Nonsense like that. A very, you know, inflated self-image. But when it came down to it, what happened? Cloudflare shut them down. Tucows does not want to host the domain.
Yeah.
Epic does not want to host their content, but they'll still host the domain. It's like each option is just closing doors.
But the
doors,
thing
doors.
is, they can still find
Maybe.
as-
Maybe.
because they can pay.
Yes, maybe. And I've talked to other people in the community. Basically, they have two options.
Yeah.
The first option is, okay, let's say that they have no CDN,
Uh-huh.
no Cloudflare, no bit mitigate. They can just open their server to the world. But the problem with that is hacktivists, so-called, can easily
Step in.
take it down,
Yeah.
you know, with distributed denial of service attacks. Right now, they only have a 10 gigabit upline, and the average attack is 26 gigabit.
So they can
So
handle
you
that.
can easily do the math and see that they're going to be taken down right
Yeah.
away. So what can they do? Can they connect more, you know, networking lines in their
Yeah.
data center? Maybe that's why Jim Watkins is in Reno. Who knows?
Uh-huh.
But but
Right.
it still won't work. Even if they get it up to 50, you know. It's ironic that they refused to take down their board after a shooting,
Yeah.
and now anyone can take it down for them. You know, any hacktivist, so-called anonymous, whatever. You know. So.
What's their other option? You said there's two.
Yeah, there's two. So that would be the first option. The second option they would have would be to try to like find another data center, find another provider. But again, they've been doing that, and the doors just keep closing.
Okay.
I mean, I read in the Guardian that there's like almost no options left. You know what I mean? So maybe Jim Watkins, with his big money, he could buy a like he could just start buying stuff. But his money is not unlimited.
Okay. The worry right now is if ever eChat really is brought down,
Right.
the users will flock to other websites.
What I would say, yes, probably that's true. But as we've seen, 8chan was an anomaly in that Jim Watkins, he is pouring money into it and it's not a profitable venture.
Uh-huh.
You know, for him, it was like a boat, like a yacht.
Yeah.
And it did not matter to him that it's not profiting.
Uh-huh.
So now that 8chan is down, it's like, what will replace it? You see what I mean?
Uh-huh.
Because there's like nothing, anything that crops up will have to meet market demands.
Yes.
Unless they can find another crazy millionaire like Watkins, who's just going to dump, you know, good money after bad.
Uh-huh.
So due to that and due to Cloudflare's decision, I don't think that there will be another 8chan. There will probably be sites like it, but they will not be run in the callous way that 8chan was. They won't have embrace infamy and it's okay to, you know, celebrate shootings here,
Yeah.
you know, because they saw what happened to 8chan. So I feel like other more competent administrators will basically change their behavior.
What are other websites that are vulnerable? Because 8chan has its own traits that made it vulnerable
Right,
to
right.
these ideologies, I mean. What websites do you think are vulnerable targets?
I would say any site with kind of, you know, an administrator that is kind of far right, you know, kind of telling users to embrace infamy, things like that.
Yeah.
Now, luckily, a lot of the other sites, for example, 4chan,
4chan?
the owner of that, he is not just so open with his politics.
Uh-huh.
You know, he doesn't just wear his political affiliation on his sleeve.
Yeah.
He's not always, you know, writing conspiracy theories and advertising it on 4chan. So even though some of the 4chan users believe that, they don't feel like the admin's on their side. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Which I feel like kind of led to this dangerous situation.
What would be your recommendation for, most importantly, social media networks which are big: Facebook, Instagram, Twitter?
Yeah, you know, people always say, oh, for example, the Christchurch shooting was streamed on Facebook.
Yes.
So why don't you blame Facebook? Things
Yeah.
like that. But the reason that 8chan receives a lot of the blame is because when it was alive, there was a receptive audience there. And there was a tech-savvy audience there.
Uh-huh.
If the Christchurch shooting had just happened on Facebook, maybe no one would have downloaded the stream.
Yeah.
And it would not be public domain right now. The reason it's public domain is because 8chan users got it and
Mhm.
they spread it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If it was just a random Facebook post, Instagram post, we might not be here talking because they seem to have a lot more control over, what leaks out. And I feel like the shooters kind of know this. So they go to 8chan because they know that, oh, there's a big community there that will download my manifesto
Yeah.
and make sure it spreads.
What would you say to those, especially the loyal users, who would say, "Oh, this is my freedom of speech. You're impending on my freedom of speech to be extremist."
Okay, well, you have freedom of speech on other sites too. And I do feel for you. 8chan was a very big site. Not everybody that uses it is an extremist.
Uh-huh.
It's very unfortunate that Jim Watkins ran things in such a bad way that everybody has to suffer for for the users that
Yeah.
were using this politics board and celebrating mass shootings.
Uh-huh.
Like I've said to the media again and again, all Jim Watkins had to do was shut down the politics board temporarily and show some kind of apology. Take down that embrace infamy. Say, we don't support this. But they didn't do that. And, so I would say to users who are worried about their
Freedom of speech.
freedom of speech, there is 4chan, there is Reddit, there is Voat, there is even BunkerChan, all these small sites. There are other places you can go. And honestly, even for 8chan's users, 8chan being down is good for them. Because if 8chan remains up, there is a big chance that, the American Congress will do something.
Yeah.
I mean, it wasn't that long ago that Sesta Fosta was passed. And that had impacts far beyond what it was supposed to be. So it's good for everybody that 8chan is down, and that's my position.
How do you think should the government regulate websites like 8chan?
Uh, you know, one of the things about 8chan is how it's such a big anomaly. Because of how Jim was pouring money into it and hiring people, this kind of thing, and he knew it would never profit. So how should, the government regulate sites like 8chan? I wish I knew. I have no idea. And I kind of feel like, at least as far as this goes, people are very much questioning the idea of a global free internet. Especially in more lockdown societies like Saudi Arabia.
Yeah.
And it would not be fun to have an internet that has to have the rules of the most strict country, right? Because there are some very strict countries on this earth,
Yeah.
Saudi being one of them. At the same time, should the whole internet follow the laws of the United States and not care about the laws of other countries? People are really saying no to that. So I kind of feel like in the future, what will happen is each block of countries, for example, here in Philippines, we would be in the ASEAN block, right?
Yeah.
They will agree to have a social network for them
Yeah.
and block out the other ones. That's kind of what I see happening.
Are there treatments that you think should be the model for other nations right now?
Are there what?
Other nations that you think are good examples when it comes to handling?
Yeah, it's already starting, what I'm saying.
Yeah.
New Zealand, for example,
Yeah.
they blocked 8chan, they blocked a bunch of other sites. Australia did the same thing. And, I'm not going to say if that's good or not, but I can say in this coming decade, we're really going to see the internet change. I really don't think that this global free experiment is going to continue because governments around the world are kind of feeding on the Chinese model, and a lot of governments are saying, why are we sending all our data to this foreign Facebook?
Yeah.
Why can't we have our own Facebook, for us, maybe for our region?
Do you think websites should be accountable if the website is used for violence?
I was willing to give, for example, 8chan the benefit of the doubt the first time.
Uh-huh.
I thought, maybe they're reviewing their policies. But then it happened again in Poway. And then it happened again in El Paso. And the same thing over and over. No apology, no taking down of the board, embrace infamy put in.
Yes.
Just complete blatant, we don't care. Users are on the board saying, hooray, and this is great, accelerate, whatever. And it's just like the admin, he just doesn't care. So, yeah.
So if violent content spreads or content that's
maybe he should be held accountable, because he didn't do anything the first few times. They say, fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. We're on the third time now, so where is the shame?
Is this rule, do you think, should be applicable for all websites?
Like I said, it is so complicated. to try to figure out how this global network is
Yeah.
going to continue into the next decades,
Uh-huh.
because there are so many challenges to it, and small countries have almost no, impact on the internet.
Uh-huh.
For example, New Zealand, like, they feel like they're kind of impotent, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because the network, everything is happening overseas, and they can send demands, and people just, say, no. So,
Okay.
yeah.
What do you think drives hate online? Because you've seen it
Yeah,
spread, you've
of
seen it grow.
course, what I would say the main driver is just the conditions in American society right now. There are a lot of men in particular who just don't have a future. They don't have a place to go. They don't have an education. They feel like if they get a college degree, it won't help them. They will just have debt and not be able to do, a
Yes.
job they want. Uh, America maybe has high on or low unemployment, but it has very high underemployment, and inequality is very much expanding
Yeah.
in the United States and maybe all over the world.
Uh-huh.
So, to me, that's kind of the root. It's just bad economic circumstances, no way to continue, in a way that past generations found easy.
But why do you think people flock online to put their hate into it?
Uh, because they have
So,
really nothing better to do. It's that, play video games, A lot of these men, and I've met them and I've talked to them, they really don't see themselves as having a future,
uh-huh.
because they don't want to work, It's like,
Yeah.
yeah,
So the solution to this is ultimately a better
societal,
condition.
societal, of
Yeah.
course, yeah. But, of course, there are things that platforms can do also.
Mhm.
You know, if Jim would have taken a harder stance against these
Uh-huh.
manifestos and told the whole politics board, hey, you cannot celebrate a shooting, you cannot incite further violence, you cannot, because it was full of posts like, oh, people are writing, I wish there will be another one, or
Uh-huh.
I hope there's one at a synagogue, or it's like those kind of posts, they should really not be allowed. And maybe in the U.S. there's some, obscure Supreme Court case or
Yeah.
whatever that makes that allowed. But you're playing with fire, and you know,
Yeah.
if it keeps happening over and over, of course the laws will change.
Okay. To be clear, 8chan right now is it operated in the Philippines, in the United States.
Yeah.
The servers are where?
Okay. So, diba, it's kind of confusing
Yeah.
because the admin lives here. Jim
Yeah.
Watkins lives in
Jim
the
Lam-
Philippines.
Yes.
Now, he very quickly made a run for it recently.
Mhm.
He doesn't have to testify in the Senate until next month.
Uh-huh.
But already he's gone. Poof.
Yeah.
Like, he didn't speak to Camp Crame, he
Yeah.
didn't speak to the NBI, it was just poof.
Yeah.
So that's kind of weird, I think. And yes, a lot of HN is operated from the Philippines.
Yes.
Jim lives here, and Jim gives a lot of orders about it from here.
Yeah.
There are moderators that live here. He has programmers working for his various companies
Yeah.
that are working on HN from the Philippines.
Mhm.
So maybe the server is in the United States, yes. But is that,
The
the back
operation
office is here.
here.
Yeah.
Why the Philippines? Why operate here?
I suppose just because Jim is married to a Filipina.
Uh-huh.
He was way before, and he operated 2channel, his bigger site,
Yeah.
Japanese site from here
Uh-huh.
too. His the admin of that, Hiroyuki Nishimura, who
Uh-huh.
now owns 4chan,
Yeah.
actually came to the Philippines and helped operate 2channel from the
Uh-huh.
Philippines. So I guess it's just because low labor cost, low cost of living, and also if you're not living in the United States, people who are angry about a post on 8chan,
Yeah.
it's harder for them to come knock on your door,
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's like it's a good place to operate a website that's in the gray area, the Philippines.
Yes, yeah. Well, it's a good place to operate the back office. Of course, you don't want to put the servers here because the internet is unreliable.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But the back office, yes. And it's totally the whole back office is here.
Really?
Yes. I'm sure. Because I left the company in December 2018.
It's still here.
Very recently.
Uh-huh.
I wasn't working on 8chan after April 2016. But Jim was always trying to get me to come back to 8chan until December 2018.
Oh, really?
And I met a lot of the people who were operating it, and it's totally here.
Here. You were asked to go back. What made you say no repeatedly?
Asked to go back where? Oh,
8chan.
to go back to 8chan. Yeah. It's just a really difficult site to operate. And, I feel like with my life, how it is right now, I just don't want any more problems. I tried really hard to operate 8chan and do the whole free speech thing. And I quickly saw, like, wow, this is difficult. Because what even is an incitement to violence? Where is the line of what isn't is not child pornography? Where is the line about doxing? Where is the line about this? And it's like you have so many decisions to make, you know what I mean, that are affecting real people's lives. I did not want to ever go back to that. And, Jim Watkins even tried to get me to sign like an agreement that I would own a part of 8chan.
Yeah.
And no, 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 no. You keep all the legal ownership, Jim.
Yeah.
That's your problem. So,
May I ask, where is 8chan based here in the Philippines?
yes, of course you may. Of course, like I said, the servers are in the United States. But lahat ng mga back office workers,
Where is it here?
the name of the company is Loki Technology Inc., if you want to look it up. A lot of the programmers there work on 8chan. Also, before Race Queen Inc., a lot of the Filipinos there are working on 8chan.
Which city in the Philippines? Which area? Do you know the address?
Race Queen was in Makati, and actually Loki Technology is not very far from here.
Here
It's in Pasig.
It's in Pasig.
Yep,
Here in
Ortigas
Ortigas.
Center.
It's in Ortigas Center.
Yes, it is.
Okay. And are the laws in the Philippines weak as compared to the United States, so it's easier to
I
moderate?
know that Jim has a lot of lawyers. I never really looked into this topic. I'm just, especially when I'm working for him under my work visa, magtiwala ko lang sa kanya. I'm trusting in him
Trust
lang.
him, yeah.
So, if the laws are weaker or not, I don't know. But one thing I find suspicious is how quickly he flew the coop. Like, I don't understand why he did that. Why he didn't speak to, if he's not guilty, why he didn't speak to Camp Crame and BI like that. They're asking him to come back, so I think he should.
What do you think Watkins violated? What laws?
I don't know that he violated any laws, okay? I'm not gonna libel him and say he violated this law, that law. I feel like that could be dangerous for me. But it's clear that he did not do simple things that he could have done.
Diligence.
Like I keep saying over and over. He could have shut down the board temporarily. He could have removed the embrace infamy. He could have shut down the whole Goldwater thing. There's so much he could have done to let users know this is not acceptable. And he did none of it.
Okay, I wanted to ask you about the online atmosphere in the Philippines because I'm pretty sure you also keep track of what's happening here. Does it worry you that there are troll armies here? There are fake news sites. Is it different as compared to other parts of the globe?
Yeah, it is different here. It is different here because here it's mostly based around Facebook because that's the cheaper, thing. Filipinos, most of them are not accessing what I would call like the real internet, They're only accessing Facebook because of load,
Yeah.
Like all the promos, and Facebook is supporting that.
Yeah.
Facebook and Globe have a deal. Facebook has deals with lots of, countries to offer its services. So it's definitely different here because everything is on Facebook.
Oh, what do you mean by the real internet? What are the
Yeah,
Filipinos missing out on?
So, like, I'm not trying to be offensive, but
No.
Facebook, it's kind of like a walled garden, you know what I mean? And outside of Facebook, there is a real internet of other sites, Google, YouTube, and I know that you can load your Globe and get those sites also, but I know that the majority of Filipinos cannot afford to do that. So it's kind of like you're trapped inside Facebook, and when you're using, the free Facebook
Free data.
offer,
Yeah.
it's like you can't escape Facebook. If you see a link to something else, you're inside Facebook, and you can't escape outside. So I think that kind of influences how it works here.
And how have you found it right now, the atmosphere online on Facebook?
I know some Tagalog, so sometimes I can read what people say, and yeah, sometimes it's surprising what people say,
Why do you think it's vulnerable? Why do you think we're vulnerable for fake news, trolls?
Well, the main thing is because everything's on Facebook, right? It's like most of the time what people are sharing is screenshots, images
Yeah.
of news sites,
Yeah.
to try to give Filipinos news. So like an image of, for example, Rappler.
Yeah.
And those are very prone to change, because it's just an image. Instead of going to the actual Rappler.com, people are mostly seeing just an image of an article
There are
that somebody
pockets.
is claiming was on Rappler. Yeah, and not only Rappler, many other sites, because to try to save money and the free load, but it causes a lot of, because it's like they're not getting it from the true source, but a third party.
For this case, do you think there's also liable for the users, or it's also all mostly in the admin's part for Facebook?
Of course, absolutely, users are liable. And I'm not saying that Jim Watkins is posting
yeah.
manifestos or anything like that.
Yeah.
And Mark Zuckerberg is not sitting there in San Francisco and writing a manifesto.
Manifesto
and
for
no,
trolls,
no,
for
no, no.
fake news, no,
So
yeah.
obviously, users are the ones that are doing it. However, the platforms do have a lot of levers they can pull and, buttons they can press
Yeah.
to try to block users from doing those kinds of things.
You've seen the troll armies attack. You've seen fake news spread online here in the Philippines. How do you think, can we stop it?
I would say that mostly Facebook is the one that needs to help with that. And I have no love for Facebook, I'm not sitting here as some kind of Facebook representative. I have
Yes.
no love for Zuckerberg or any of that.
What do you think should they do, especially for this?
Yeah, I think, honestly, they're paying to let Globe give free data to Filipinos. They should allow Filipinos, first of all, to access outside of Facebook, to see the actual content, to be able to follow links outside. That would be a big first step. And, instead of having to trust an image macro of an article or like an image with like text on it, it would be good if people could see the actual site. So, for example, Facebook should give, access to Rappler for free. When you have your, just as an example, not only Rappler, ABS-CBN interaction.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay,
like when you load your free data, you should be able to access those sites also. I think that would help.
Because the biggest problem also is there are a lot of images that are going viral, and it's hard to fact check it
Right.
on your own.
Yeah.
And users usually are not just stuck on Facebook, but their own pockets in Facebook.
Yeah.
So it's an echo chamber of
Yeah.
fake news.
And
hate
that's
too.
a big problem because it's like Facebook definitely needs to amplify legitimate news sources and not just individual users who are making images. Because right now, they're amplifying like individual users who are making screenshots and maybe those are not totally legitimate. It's easy to fake any of that. So, yeah, they should definitely amplify, for example, legitimate sources here. Yeah, to
Okay.
try to cut down on that.
My question now is, have you been tracked down by people who manage troll farms?
I have not.
So that you
no.
can contribute? Because
No, I haven't, no.
We heard that there are people who were asked to help because it generates a lot of money, these operations, and it's systematic.
Right,
So
and I
you
know that
haven't
it's
been
not
reached
only
out.
here, in Russia also.
Yeah.
They're having the same problem. No, nobody's contacted me, but of course if they did, I would say no.
Okay.
I'm living a simple life right now. I'm just, I received a grant to work on an open source project of my choice. So I chose FontForge, which is just a font editor. So there's nothing offensive that can be done with what I'm working on. Maybe you can make a spectacularly ugly font, right? But that's not going to have the same kind of negative effect that HN has had.
Are you on Facebook personally?
Am I on Facebook?
Yeah.
I really only use Messenger. Sometimes I will write something, but usually it's just related to my work, like, yeah.
Okay. You said I wanted to ask you about the real internet. That you think Filipinos are missing out on.
Well-
what would you recommend for Filipinos to go to?
It's like, for me, when I'm using the Globe promos, right? I prefer SuperSurf 15 or SuperSurf 30 or whatever
Yeah.
it is, because that lets you access the whole internet.
Yeah.
Not only a few certain apps, that have a deal with Globe. And it might be more expensive in the long run, but it seems like what's really needed is net neutrality, because that's what, like here it seems like it's legal for a internet service provider to make a certain website cheaper to access. But with net, that wouldn't be legal in my country. So the first time I saw that was here.
Okay. Wrapping up,
Okay.
we're closer to wrapping up. I wanted to ask you about your details on your meeting with the PNP because you met with them on August 9.
Yes.
How did that come about? Did they invite you?
Yeah.
Where did you go?
Yeah, they invited me and they were emailing me and they said, "Oh, we saw your interview with the AFP and you said you would talk to us. So, come and talk to us." And in my own country, I know that sometimes the police should not be just totally trusted.
Yeah.
I don't know anything about here, okay? But, I talked to them a little bit. I hired an attorney, and I talked to the attorney about the case, and he was like, go ahead, there's nothing self-incriminating for you here, so that's it. I just, and I had a meeting with them, and I told them everything I knew.
Okay. Did you give any details about Watkins?
I told them, like, for example, I don't see any reason to hide this. I told them, what I know about where he lives, his age, his full name. They very, and I think they really want to talk to him.
Do you know when James Watkins left the Philippines?
He left really fast, and it was really suspicious.
Oh.
I mean, it seems like he left, like,
April?
yeah.
When?
Like like a day after the shooting.
A day after which shooting?
The El Paso.
El Paso shooting.
Yeah.
He left the
Yeah,
Philippines.
because I have to drive by his house to go to church, and I haven't seen his little red Ford Mustang. So,
It's all there ever since.
yeah, so, and he posted also a video of him at some casino resort in Nevada.
Oh.
Yeah, the Washington Times, or Washington Post has details about that. It seems very suspicious to me how quickly he left. He doesn't need to speak to the American Congress until next month, September 15th. Malayo yan, So he could have met with the PNP if he wanted, but it just seems like he doesn't want to.
Do you know if he brought his family to the U.S.?
I have no idea, sir. He hates me. We don't have like a good contact. I can't just call up Jim and be like, hey, buddy.
But it's interesting how you always pass by his house on the way
Yeah.
to church. Were
Yeah.
you church mates before?
No, we weren't. He doesn't
doesn't go
believe
to
in
church.
that. But, yeah, it's not like I can just call him up. If I had to speculate, I would say it's him and his lieutenant, Tom Rydell, who left. But that's just speculation.
Okay, let's go to users now. What do you think should users do to reclaim safe spaces online for discourse, for what you wanted, for good discussions on the internet?
Yeah, I wish I had a good recommendation about that, but seeing how these networks just always seem to turn out, I don't have much advice. I wish I could give you some, but it just seems like uh, it just seems
Are
like
you
they
hopeful?
always seem to go the same way, and I guess the only glimmer of hope I've seen is like Facebook groups with like, a very narrow topic of discussion and like very obvious rules about what's allowed and what's not allowed. These kind of free-for-all websites, they always seem to degenerate into the same thing. So,
It always ends up being violent.
yeah, I'm not sure I would recommend it.
So you're talking about those special Facebook groups where people talk about their interests and
Yeah,
social topics.
those are usually positive.
Okay. My last question for you.
All right.
What would be your message for people
Sure.
to make the most out of the internet to reclaim what it used
Yeah.
to be?
My message would be, don't go on sites like 8chan. It's not good for your psyche, especially those boards that are like very negative politically like that. It just gets you into a cycle of negativity and problems. So, yeah, I would definitely say avoid those negative sites. Limit the time you spend on the internet. A half hour. Well, unless you have a job. I mean, limit the time you spend on message boards and chat rooms. A half hour to an hour is more than enough. I know many 8chan users, including myself before, are spending 6, 8, 12 hours a day on 8chan. Hindi healthy yan. So, any message board, it should be cut down to 1 hour. And the final thing I would say is, people who are running sites like 8chan, they need to be neutral. They need to not have their politics coming out of their mouth all the time. They need to not take a side. And they need to do more when users are inciting violence. That's what I would say.
Thank you so much.
All
Mr.
right,
Fredrick
great. It
Brennan.
was great talking to you.
Yeah, this has been Rappler Talk. I am Rambo Talabong. We spoke to 8chan founder Fredrick Brennan. Tune in more to Rappler and watch this Rappler live or a Rappler interview on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. Thanks for watching.